Today we're going to cover how to remove studs from exhaust manifolds. During the course of working on cars or doing a restoration, there comes a time where you basically need to remove these. Because of the heat from the engine, they're usually seized in there, and they're usually pretty difficult to remove. So I'm going to go through these manifolds that I have, and we're going to kind of start with heat to see if we can get these studs out, and if not, other methods to remove those. But this is kind of we're flying blind here. We're starting this out. It's not scripted, and we'll figure out what we need to do to remove these. As you can see, somebody's already broken them off, removing them from the rest of the exhaust system. And this is a good example that we're going to start with heat to do this. So follow along, and if there's any questions later on, please feel free to comment. Thanks. You can see here's the set of exhaust manifolds that we're going to work on, and I'm just kind of giving a view of the studs that we're going to attempt to remove. As you can see, they're broken off, they're bent up. They're a perfect example of what you would encounter with a 30 or 40-year-old car, working on it, restoring it, or doing whatever. What I'm starting off with here is also just some basic tools, is a bunch of locking vice grips. What I like to use is usually the vice grips that have a straight tooth profile and very sharp, detailed teeth. These are going to bite into the stud, and they're going to be kind of cherry red, and this is kind of, you don't want this slipping while you're doing this, so you really need a good pair of quality vice grips. I like the original vice grip brands. Some of the older ones seem to have a little bit better quality than the newer ones. And as you can see, I also have some smaller ones here that are usually used for smaller bolts in more confined areas when you're working on a car, when you actually can't swing this through an arc to actually get the studs off. But being prepared, I kind of have everything in front of me. I have sparker for the torch. I have a cutting head, but I like to use just a regular tip on the torch, and then some wax. These are just normal candles, and you'll see where these come into play during this process. Also, gloves and some water just to be safe. When the studs are red hot, we can put those in there, or if we have an issue, we can at least quench it and cool it down rapidly. And then all I just have is a couple of little pony bottles. These are probably the size that most hobbyists or people that just, work on cars on the side or whatever have something like this. It's difficult to get the larger bottles if you're not a commercial business, and these will work just fine. You just need to refill them every once in a while, but how infrequently I use these last me quite a while. Okay, let's get started. The first thing we want to do is place the manifold inside of a vise. This vise has aluminum soft jaws with some rubber pads. This really helps to clamp the part really well, but yet not put marks or damage onto the manifold. Now that we've got that secured, we will go and grab our torch set, and we'll crack open the valves and get that set up. When you open up torches, you just crack open your acetylene and you open your oxygen all the way. I like to set my oxygen at about 12 pounds and like about 7 pounds for my acetylene. So I'm all set there. Next, I like to, we'll get the torch set up, get our safety gear on, and get our vice grips set so they'll actually clamp onto the product. You're going to want to basically clamp these as tight as you can. because when they're red hot, they will definitely soften up a little bit. And this is, you really need this grip, or else you'll just end up stripping this onto the stud and you're not going to get the force you need to get the stud out of the manifold. So I put some gloves on. And we'll get started. Looking to try to get a neutral flame as much as possible. Start there, come down in, and we'll go from there. So the first thing we do is we just start and going around and just start to kind of preheat it, get all the scale off. And then we kind of want to concentrate the most of the heat into the cast iron, because that's going to draw most of the heat away, because you've got all of this cast iron that's acting like a heat sink. So you want to try to concentrate here as much as you can. My tip wasn't all the way screwed in, and you can see what happened. So that was one thing that I should have checked, but I did not. So let's start this again. You want to keep working it around, and you don't want to get too close, because you'll just start actually puddling up the metal and making it molten. What you're looking for is get that dull cherry red. As you can see, as I pull the torch away, you can start to see that. So now that we have the cast iron like that, we'll start concentrating on the stud to try to get that as cherry red as possible. It doesn't take as much heat to get the stud cherry red as we talked about before. Now this is where the wax comes into play. What I like to do is take some candle wax and put in there under the top. And what that does is that helps lubricate the threads. As crazy as it seems, it usually seems to help a little bit with getting the stud out. So we'll give that a whirl. Clamp down. Again, time is of the essence. And sometimes you might need to start. You hear it squeaking a little bit. Just work it back and forth. Come over here. You might want to get another bite. If you can, a little more candle wax in there. That just helps get wicks down in there and helps lubricate the threads. Now I'm hearing a little bit of crunchiness, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop, and we're just going to repeat this. Give it a little more heat. You know, it's basically cooled down enough, and again, we'll just keep adding heat. That's what happens if you don't clamp it enough and get a good bite. And of course, the more studs you get out, the more swing you'll have with your vice grips. So once we get this one out, the next ones will go a lot easier. So there we go. There's number one out. Throw it in the bucket, let it quench, and on to the next one. Okay, this one's pretty cherry red now. We get on to the stud a little bit, get that cherry red. There we go. Again, try to get a little wax in there if we can, a little lubrication. Alright, that one's making a little noise. It's a little tough, so we think we broke it. We broke the tension on it, so we'll just go through and heat it again. Doing it on a bench like this is definitely much easier than doing it in the car. If you can do it this way, I highly recommend it. But, you know, there's times where you can't, and you just it's kind of the same steps. Sometimes it's a little tougher to get into, and I think this one's going to snap off. Yeah, okay. So, we were not able to get that one, but that's okay, because this will kind of go through the next step on how to remove broken studs and broken bolts. So we'll use this as an example. So we'll go on to the third one, and go from there. Sometimes if there's some scale hanging out on the edge, I can just kind of work it out too, like that. Now you could use a rosebud to heat it quicker. I like to use a smaller one, just due to the fact is that I'd rather creep up on it. You know, if somebody's really super experienced and does this every day, you know, probably a rosebud is something that would make more sense. Kind of gearing this towards people starting out and that infrequently, you know, do things like this. I'm sure there's people out there that know a lot more about this than I do. out of the world. Oops. Try to get some of that in there. And that'll just burn off. Sometimes you can use a little penetrating oil too. I don't like using too much because it just quenches the cast iron. I like to let it dry. I don't want to quench it too much, or else it'll just have a tendency to crack the cast iron. Alright, we'll give that a whirl. Alright, that's 2 out of 3 we got. Okay. Alright, so that's it. We've got 2 out of the 3 with heat. We sheared one off, broke one off, and now we'll go through how to get that one out after this cools off. Alright, to remove the broken stud, we will need to drill it out and tap out the little piece that will be left over within the hole. To do that, we will need a file, an automatic center punch, a center drill, a series of drills that step up to the top size, a top handle wrench, some lubrication, a cordless drill or another type of drill. I like to use a cordless drill because they are relatively low speed and the chucks are not that good, so if you get in trouble and the drill hangs up, the chuck itself will basically slip instead, so it's kind of a good safety feature. And I also have a set of calipers here to measure the size of the drills to make sure that they are indeed the size that you're intending to drill. If you look, the studs are 3/8/16 thread, so if you end up looking at a drill chart, you will see that a 3/8/16 is a top drill size of 5/16, which equates to 0.3125. Because we're not really trying to drill the whole entire piece out, we will go undersize a little bit. So we'll probably go up to like a 290 drill size, especially considering that you're not going to get it exactly onto the center. So the steps involved to get this stud out is we're going to file it flat, find the center, click it with a center punch, do a center drill, and incrementally drill it out enough to top the piece out. Okay, I'm going to take the file and file it flat so we get a really nice surface. You can take a body grinder or something if you want. The thing that I like about a file is it's a lot more controllable, and if you got a really nice part that you're trying to save, you're not going to hit any grinding marks onto it. When you file, you always go in one direction, never go back and forth. Because all you're going to do is dull your teeth on your file. Files are designed to cut in one direction only. Alright, so now we get a really good flat surface. And the next thing we'll do is automatic center punch it. What you're trying to do is pick up the center of this stud. So you need to kind of line it up the best you can to center. And then I just like to keep doing it multiple times so you get a really nice divot. That looks pretty good right there. Alright. Next we will take our center drill, and when you do these projects, especially this, drilling out studs and everything, you want to have your tooling as sharp as possible. So make sure you try to use new tools as much as you can, especially center drills, because they have a tendency to break really easily. And you don't need a lot of pressure when you do this. Let the tool do its work. that looks pretty good. I'm off center a little bit, but not too bad. I think it'll work quite fine. While I'm in there, I'm just going to work up to another larger size center drill. Alright. Now we'll start with a relatively small drill. This looks like it's about 90 thousandths in diameter. I forget what I did. It's actually 110, so we'll go through there. At this point, we'll give it a little bit of cutting fluid. Okay. Try to hold the drill as straight as you can. And we'll take a little break and clean the drill, and we'll keep going. Now you could, set this up in a Bridgeport or a drill press or something like that to do all the drilling. I'm trying to keep this video geared towards the hobbyist that doesn't have a whole bunch of equipment, but a little bit of knowledge and stuff like that, so you can actually do this without a major investment. Now we're at the end. So this is where you got to be a little careful so you don't snap the drill off. And you might just want to work it a little bit if need be. Come back, you'll know it. And that's fine right there. Next step up, we're going to like 115. The small ones are really tough for breaking through, so now that we've got a pretty good hole, we can bump it up in size a little bit, and I'm going up to about 220 now. Now we'll go to like 270. All right, so got a little major burr there. So I think now what we can do is we can actually, we're at a point where we can actually run our tap through, and that'll start getting rid of the stuff. So we're trying to get it nice and square, so nice 3/8/16, and you can see it's starting to cut that bolt out. You see that? What it's trying to do is, while you're doing this, it's actually finding the old threads into it. Sometimes you just got to work it back and forth a little bit just to get it to kind of find where it needs to go. There. All right. You want to be careful and not use too much pressure, or else you'll end up snapping the top. You can feel the pieces starting to break out. There you go. So there you go. It's all basically fresh threads now. What we have is this, the bolt was a little bit higher, and so there's still a little piece here left, and what we'll be able to do is take this out of there. With a hammer and a little teeny punch. piece of this bolt. So it works almost like an easy out almost. You're using the top as an easy out. And so now there you go. So you get nice threads now. What you can do is thread a new stud in. I've got an old one here just to show you. And if you happen to go off center too much with this, now that the old stud is out of the hole, you have the ability to basically drill it oversized and throw a helicoil in if you need to, but most of the time you'll be able to save the threads without having to do that. So that's that. These two we were able to get out with heat. This one we basically chased out by drilling out, and we have a stud, a manifold ready to accommodate studs, and put it back into service. You know, we'll probably want to blast this and clean it up before we actually put it into a car or whatever. Now's the perfect time to do that, but here we go. So we're able to basically salvage this manifold and be able to put it back into service. Please comment below if you've got any questions. Feel free to contact me via email, and good luck on your project.